My name is Sarah. I'm a neurophysio and I run Motion Rehab here in Leeds. And this is the only clinic of its kind in the UK that is offering intensive rehab following stroke. So I was going to give you a bit of a chat about the idea behind setting it up and why it's different, and then we'll have a little wander around if you feel up to it, and have a little look and maybe have a little go on some of the technologies, depending which of our clients that are working are using what devices. My background is that I've worked in neuro rehab for coming up to 17 years, and I've run a private practice across the region for about 12 years. And for me, the move into the private sector from the NHS was really about being able to do what we do as therapists well, without the constraints of discharges and limited staff or limited resources, which unfortunately rehab falls into a bit of a black hole. The NHS are fabulous at their job, they just don't have the resources to do things for long enough or intense enough, and they don't quite have the resources, unfortunately. So I ventured into the private sector so that we could start really doing what we were trained to do as therapists without having someone kind of saying you've done too much or that patient needs discharging. Over the last 10 or 12 years, I've had a real interest in the role that technology can play in rehabilitation. So as therapists, we have the lovely magic hands, but there's only so much that the magic hands can do, and then what happens when you're not with that therapist? How do you can then promote ongoing rehabilitation, or even sometimes achieve stuff that we as therapists can't do? So I've integrated technology for many years in my practice, and we provide an outreach service for the NHS for electrical stimulation. So if any of you have used FES for drop foot, we provide services here for the whole of Yorkshire and Humberside and pretty much the north of England, apart from a little pocket in Leeds. So Leeds do have their own FES service. So some of the clients come to us on the NHS and some go into the Leeds service. It depends on your GP and your location. So I started to have a little look at the literature, and we know that after your stroke, the brain doesn't repair itself. What it does is it reorganises, it rewires. So the role of rehabilitation is about getting the rewiring so that parts of the brain that were affected by their stroke, their jobs and roles and responsibilities are sent to different parts of the brain. And in rehab, we optimise that as best we can. We know that the more you do, the more repetition you do, the quicker the brain learns and rewires. And it's not just after a stroke that happens. Our brains are rewiring constantly from the minute we are born. That's how you will remember this conversation. It will rewire and you will store that memory. And we know that at certain parts of your life, the rewiring of your brain is much quicker. I can't play a musical instrument. If I wanted to, I could start to learn tomorrow, but it would take me an awful lot longer than my 7-year-old daughter learning to play a musical instrument. Her brain is more plastic, and you'll have heard that word, and it just means it can rewire much quicker. So it continues on for the entire of your life, and after having a stroke, that rewiring happens at its fastest within the first 2 years. Crucially, it doesn't stop. And my ultimate frustration is health professionals or individuals that tell you this is as good as you're going to get. And I don't know if anyone's heard that.
People report that, and I think that's something we should really fight, because it's so negative.
That's me on a soapbox. Because your brain is plastic, it rewires regardless of whether you've had a stroke. It is rewiring for the entirety of your lifetime. And the guys that come from the personal training fitness industry have that far greater skill level than we do. So we bring them all together as a team. And the patients come in, so they'll do one hands-on therapy session every day. We still need a therapist. And the rest of the time we're using the robotics, the virtual reality, the technology, so that you're doing high repetitions. And that then is going to be promoting the outcomes of rewiring and then hopefully your functional outcomes. So we're going to go and have a little walk around and have a look at some of the technology. The example that I will give is the big bit of kit in the middle is my baby. It's a robotic gait trainer. So it's a robot that walks you. So some of you guys might have seen the exoskeletons that you strap onto your legs and they walk you around. They have a role in rehab, but when I was looking at the technology that I wanted on site, it was very much about rehabilitation and repetition. And for an example, one of the exoskeleton companies in their marketing literature said in an average session, I don't know what their average session is, a patient will walk 200 to 250 steps. If they use the exoskeleton, they walk about 550. In our average session, which is somewhere around 40 minutes, they're doing somewhere between 2,500 and 4,000 steps. It's massive. So the carryover for walking and training is dramatically different, and that's what it's about. It's high intensity because you're here for an intensive period. It's high intensity because you're doing lots of repetitions. And I would suggest there's lots of people now using these statements when they're advertising therapy or rehab services, but I don't believe you can do high repetition, high intensive training without this kind of technology.
So do you measure your success by these parameters that you set for targets for people? So you can look and say, like you just told us, you can get somebody back to work on. So it doesn't matter what your aim is, because people might not have massive, I'm not going to go back on the trapeze.
Yep.
So, but I might want to be able to peg my washing out with a bit more flexibility.
I think that's super important, you've got it right, because rehab is really unique to everybody. So it can't be a one size fits all. So although people are here for the 80 hours, what they do while they're here depends on what the goals are. And rehab has to involve the individual that's participating. It's a massive commitment. So not only is a massive commitment to your time, as I've said, we're a private provider at the minute, and it therefore would be a commitment of people's finances. We are working really hard to try and get connections with the NHS so that the NHS can fund. So there's no point you coming to see me and me going, right, we want to get you to run the Harewood 10K if you have absolutely no interest in doing that. So we have to set the goals. For some people, their goals might be a little bit too optimistic. And we say, well, actually, let's break that down, because it's never a no, never ever a no. If you have a goal that you want to achieve, we'll break it down and we'll work towards it. For some people, they underestimate what they can do, and their goals are set maybe a little bit lower, and we think, no, well, we'll work towards that, but you're going to get there really quickly, and then when you've got there, we need to think about what you do next. Overwhelmingly, I feel that individuals who've suffered a stroke are generally underestimated. So this idea that you couldn't do 4 hours of rehab, it will be too tiring or too fatiguing, completely underestimated. You'd be surprised at how hard people can work and how hard they can commit to their rehabilitation. And what we have to remember, for the most part, there are some people who are very unwell when they have their stroke. So if you were not unwell and medically unwell afterwards, why can't we push you? Why can't we make you work? But I do think bespoking and planning with the therapy team is really important, because you'll see all sorts of stuff about people who run marathons. Well, I don't want to run a marathon before my stroke, I don't want to run after. What I would like to do is to be able to carry the basket of washing and peg it up, or peel a banana and not have to ask somebody to help me. So we do plan to provide rehab to meet everybody's individual needs. It's really important. So I'd just like to thank Different Strokes West Yorkshire for coming to visit us today, and Aphasia Leeds UK for attending as well. And you'd be more than welcome to come and visit Motion Rehab anytime.
Thank you to Jeff Render of Different Strokes and to Motion Rehab. Thank you.